Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. Today I'm going to talk about more players opting out in their respective restarts in the NBA and Major League Baseball. Go over this morning's KBO games, look ahead to tomorrow morning's games. Go over the Premier League and La Liga games from yesterday, look ahead to today's games. We'll preview and predict the MLS's back tournament, including picks of tonight's two games and picks to advance from each group and go to the Sweet 16. I will give out my pick for the golf tournament for the weekend, and I'll do my 2012 MLB ReDraft. All right, we'll start with players opting out. The latest name to opt out of the NBA restart, Taurean Prince of the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are not even going to be fielding a team out there, for crying out loud. They have to sign so many of these replacement players. So Taurean Prince was somebody that they would have had to rely on. And he opted out. Spencer Dinwiddie opted out the other day. Obviously, don't have Durant, who didn't play the whole year. Kyrie Irving. Wilson Chandler's out. And DeAndre Jordan is out as well. So that's 6 players from the Brooklyn Nets that opted out of this restart. Well, one of them, and Kevin Durant, obviously did not play the entire year, but I'm counting him anyway because he's on their roster. So now the question is, who do they sign to replace Dinwiddie? I know they signed Tyler Johnson to their roster, so I guess he'll be their starting point guard. And then you have Karis LeVert and Joe Harris as your first 3 players, and then you have Jared Allen as your starting center. And at power forward, who do you have? Ed Davis? That's nuts. They're going to have such a hole at the power forward position going into this restart because Wilson Chandler would have been a good candidate to start at that position for them. He's opted out. You could have gone super small and went with Taurean Prince. He opted out. So I guess they have to start Ed Davis at that position once the league restarts. And then other teams, players opting out, Dallas, Willie Cauley-Stein. Houston, Thabo Sefolosha, so that's just a role player. Indiana, Victor Oladipo, that's the biggest name to opt out of the restart because we knew that Irving and Durant weren't playing due to injuries. And then, by the way, Houston signed Luka Batamute to replace Thabo Sefolosha. And you could argue Luka Batamute is better than Thabo Sefolosha at this point. Lakers, Avery Bradley, they signed J.R. Smith to replace him. Portland, Trevor Ariza, that's secretly a big loss for them because he was somebody that was capable of hitting threes for them, even starting some games at small forward, but now at this point in his career in a bench role, coming off the bench and hitting some big three-pointers, and he's a veteran and been in big games. So that's secretly a big loss for the Blazers. And in Washington, Davis Bertans and Bradley Beal. And now Washington, I mentioned this, with all those guys opted out for Brooklyn, I think the team that is hurt the most is Washington, because Bradley Beal is somebody that could conceivably carry a team single-handedly to a victory. And Davis Bertans had a career year this year with the Wizards too. So Rui Hachimura is going to be playing for them. This is his time to shine. Thomas Bryant. Is Isaiah Thomas still on their roster? If so, he would be starting at point guard. Oh, wait, no, he's on the Clippers. So I don't even know who would be starting at point guard for Washington. And then you obviously have Thomas Bryant and Rui Hachimura in your front court. So they don't even know who's going to be starting at their other 3 positions. So they have some things to figure out. Utah, rumors about Donovan Mitchell, but he has not opted out yet. Maybe he comes, and if he comes, him and Gobert are both there, then they have a chance to go on a run. Bogdan Bogdanovic opted out for Utah, or Bojan Bogdanovic. That's a big loss for them because he was their starting small forward, and he really was another option for the Jazz. But they have Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, and Rudy Gobert. So they're missing somebody in the 4th spot unless they would have went small ball. But yeah, Bogdanovich is a big loss for Utah. Another scoring option for them. But yeah, if Donovan Mitchell is back and playing, then they have a puncher's chance to potentially go far. Toronto looks like all of them are coming back. San Antonio won't have LaMarcus Aldridge because of injury. And he's somebody that's almost at the end of his prime. Sacramento, looks like none of those big names have opted out yet. Bogdanovich is the Bogdanovich they have, and then they have De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. So their team's not bad. And then Portland, we talked about Trevor Ariza. Phoenix has a nice little core with Kelly Oubre and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Looks like Philadelphia's guys are all coming back. Orlando has already arrived at Disney, and they did it bus style. OKC has nobody opting out. New Orleans, not that I know of yet. JJ Redick's concerned, but he's playing for his team. Milwaukee, looks like they're going to have everybody there. Same for Miami, same for Memphis. We talked about Avery Bradley. Clippers, we haven't heard of anybody opting out as far as I know. And nobody on Denver, I don't think, has opted out yet, or the Boston Celtics. And quickly, before we move on, we'll talk about baseball and some of their opt-outs. To go over everyone that's opted out. The Diamondbacks, Mike Leake. We talked about that when it happened. He would have been their 3rd or 4th starter this year behind Madison Bumgarner and I'm blanking on his name. Robbie Ray. And then would have been Leake and then the kid they got from the Marlins, who I think is really good, Zach Gallen. Atlanta, 2 veterans have opted out, Nick Markakis and Felix Hernandez. Felix Hernandez, I don't think would have had an impact for them anyway. I think he's washed up. Nick Markakis is a good veteran to have around, been in big games. And we talked yesterday how this opens the door up for Christian Pache to be in the outfield. The Rockies, Ian Desmond, he had that long Instagram post about opting out and his feelings and whatnot. Dodgers, David Price, that's been the biggest name, and perhaps the 2 sports to opt out so far. But certainly not the biggest star player, biggest star of Oladipo, but the biggest name to opt out in either of the 2 sports is David Price. And in Washington, Wellington Castillo, Joe Ross, and Ryan Zimmerman. Castillo's obviously their backup catcher. Joe Ross, fringe 5th starter. Ryan Zimmerman, washed up at this point. So, any more people that opt out, you'll hear it here on the podcast for sure. Now I'm going to talk about yesterday's KBO results and look ahead to the games for tomorrow. Interesting results last night, to say the least. So without further ado, here we go. Kaium over Samsung 7-6, Latte over Hanwha 6-2, LG over Doosan 8-5, KT over Kia 7-4, and SK over NC 3-2. So I got 3 of those selections correct and 2 of them wrong. Tomorrow, all at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time and 6:30 p.m. out in Korea. You have the Giants at the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Giants again here to win on the road. The Lions at the Heroes. I'm going to go with the Lions to bounce back here. The Dinos at the Wyverns. Got to go with the Dinos to bounce back. The Twins and the Bears. I'm going to go with the Bears to bounce back at home. And then you have the Wiz and the Tigers. I'm going to go with the Tigers to bounce back at home against the Wiz. Quick look at the standings. The Dinos are 37-17. The Bears are 34-22. 4 back of the Dinos, 5 back in the loss column. The The Bears are 32-23. They are a game and a half back of the Heroes, 1 back in the loss column. The Twins are 30-25. They are 2 back of the Bears and 2 back in the loss column. The Lions are 30-26. They're a half game back of the Twins, 1 back in the loss column. The Tigers are 27-25. They're a game back of the Lions, but the Lions have 1 more loss than the Tigers, and the Tigers and the Twins are tied in the loss column, although the Twins have 3 more wins. The Wiz are 27-28. They are a game and a half back of the Tigers, 3 back in the loss column, although tied in the win column. The Giants are 25-28. They're a game back of the Wiz, although tied in the loss column. The Wyverns are 17-38. They are 9 games back of the Giants, 10 back, though, in the loss column. And last but not least, Hanwha 14-41. They are 3 back of the Wyverns and 3 back in the loss column. Now I'm going to go over the results in La Liga and the Premier League from yesterday and look ahead to the games today. We'll start in La Liga. Some of these results yesterday were very interesting, to say the least. You had Valencia over Valladolid 2-1. Valencia is 13-11-11 with 50 points. Valladolid, meanwhile, 8-15-12, 39 points. Celta Vigo and Atletico Madrid ended in a 1-1 draw. Celta Vigo, 7-15-13 with 36 points. Atletico Madrid, 16-15-4 with 63 points. 3 matches today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You have Getafe and Villarreal. Getafe, 14-11-9 with 53 points. And Villarreal, 16-6-12 with 54 points. I'm going to go with the draw here. It's plus 210. So give me the draw between Villarreal and Getafe at Getafe. Real Betis and Osasuna. Real Betis, 9-11-14, 38 points. Osasuna, 11-12-11 with 45 points. I'm going to go with Osasuna here this would be an upset, plus 280. So I think that's good value on Osasuna over Real Betis, who they are ahead of in the standings. Barcelona and Espanyol at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time today. Barcelona, obviously, 22-7-5, 73 points. And Espanyol, 5-9-20, 24 points. Barcelona's going to kill them. They're the way better team with the better athletes, led by the one and only Lionel Messi. So give me the Barcelona FC at minus 770, and I'm going to parlay those 3 picks in a parlay. So again, Getafe Villarreal draw plus 210, Osasuna plus 280, and Barcelona minus 770. Altogether, it comes to plus 1231. And now we'll do Premier League results from yesterday, which were interesting as well. Watford over Norwich City, 2-1. Watford, 7-10-17, 31 points. Norwich City, 5-6-23, 21 points. Chelsea over Crystal Palace, 3-2. Chelsea with a good win, 18-6-10, 60 points. Crystal Palace, 11-9-14 with 42 points. And Arsenal and Leicester City ended in a 1-1 draw. Arsenal 12-14-8, 50 points. And Leicester City 17-8-9, 59 points. There are 4 matches today in the Premier League. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. West Ham and Burnley. West Ham 8-7-18, 31 points. Burnley 13-7-13, 46 points. I'm going to go with the draw here, plus 250. I don't feel good about it at all. I think these teams are somewhat similar, although they are far apart in the standings. So I think a draw at plus 250, I think is pretty good value there. Manchester City, Newcastle, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Man City, 21-3-9, 66 points. Newcastle is 11-10-12 with 43 points. Manchester City is the easy pick. They are minus 1,000. They are going to win this game by multiple goals at home over Newcastle. Sheffield United and Wolves at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time today. Wolves 13-13-7, 52 points. Sheffield United 12-12-9, 48 points. I am going to go with Wolves here plus 110. Do I feel good about it? No. They are the better goal-scoring team, and I think that will make a difference here as they're playing at Sheffield United. And last but not least, 3:15 Eastern time today, Brighton and Liverpool. Brighton 8-12-13, 36 points. Liverpool 29-2-2, 89 points. Liverpool's the easy pick. They're going to win this game by multiple goals. They are minus 182, and I just think that the price is so short on Liverpool because they really don't have anything to play for. So I'm going to parlay Manchester City, Liverpool, Wolves, and the West Ham Burnley draw, and it all comes out to 11.53 odds, plus 11.53. So there you have it with my soccer, or I should say non-MLS soccer picks, so the Premier and La Liga picks. And now I'm going to talk about the MLS is Back tournament, which begins tonight. It should be a lot of fun. Obviously, the Dallas team dropped out because of their outbreak of corona cases. So Group B is now only a 3-team group. So before I do my picks for tonight, I'm going to do my picks for the tournament and pick my winner of each group and the top twos to advance, and then fill out the rest of the bracket here. Group A features Orlando, Miami, NYCFC, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Nashville. My pick to win Group A is Philadelphia. They are, I forgot what their exact number was. Okay, plus 350, which is good value. I think Philadelphia is a really good team. So I'm going to go with Philadelphia here. And then the second team I have advancing from Group A is the NYCFC. They're really good. And then my third team to advance, I'm going to go with Miami. Group A is 3 going to be advancing, so those are my 3. Philadelphia first, NYCFC second, Miami third. And then just for shits and giggles, the rest of it, I'm going to go Orlando fourth, Chicago fifth, Nashville sixth. Group B, obviously FC Dallas is out because of the COVID spikes. You have Vancouver, Seattle, and San Jose. I'm going to go with Seattle to win Group B. And then the other team to advance from Group B, I'm going to say that's San Jose. And then Vancouver I have coming in third. Group C, Toronto, New England, Montreal, and DC United. I'm going to say Toronto wins this group. New England second, Montreal third, DC United fourth. So Toronto and New England advance to the 16. Group D, you have Salt Lake, Sporting, KC, Colorado, and Minnesota. I'm going to go with an upset. I think Colorado's going to win Group D. Colorado's not a bad team. I think they're being undervalued in this tournament. So give me Colorado to win Group D. Sporting, KC second. I'm going to say Salt Lake third, Minnesota fourth. So Colorado and Sporting KC go to the 16. Group B, you have Atlanta, Cincinnati, the New York Red Bulls, and Columbus. My pick for this group, I'm going to go with the New York Red Bulls. There has been a little bit of turmoil over the last year or so with the Red Bulls. They lost one of their best players. They lost their coach. So I think that the Red Bulls will rally here and win Group B. I think Atlanta will come in second. Atlanta's a good team, good expansion team. Columbus third, and then Cincinnati, arguably the worst team in MLS. I'm going to say that Cincinnati will come in fourth in this group. So the Red Bulls and Atlanta advances from Group B for me. And last but not least, Group F, you have LAFC, LA Galaxy, Houston, and Portland. I think LAFC will win This group, LAFC, is arguably the best team in the league. It's just unfortunate because Carlos Vela, who is your reigning MVP, opted out of the tournament. But they still have some other good players. They have Diego Rossi. They have Bradley Wright Phillips, the former Red Bull star, who came over here as a free agent. So I think that they'll still win this group despite not having Carlos Vela with them. And then second, I'm going to go with LA Galaxy. There's a lot of pressure on LA Galaxy to do well in this tournament. They have some solid players. They have Javier Hernandez and Alexander Kate, Christian Pavone. So I'm going to go with LA Galaxy to come in second place in Group F. Third place, I'm going to say Portland. And then fourth, I'm going to go with Houston. So there are 6 groups. I placed 13 teams in the tournament Sweet 16. So I need 3 more teams to go. I am going to go with Salt Lake as one of the wild cards. I'm going to go with Orlando as a wild card. And I'm going to go... this is a tough call. I'm going to go with Montreal as the other wild card. So there you have it. My 3 wild cards to get in. Orlando, Montreal, and Salt Lake as my 3 wild card teams to get in the knockout round of 16. And now I'll pick tonight's matches. You have Orlando and Miami being the opener for tonight. It was supposed to be, obviously, Dallas and, I forgot who Dallas was supposed to play. I'm blanking. But they were supposed to play, and obviously they backed out of the tournament. Orlando City and Inter Miami. I'm going to go with Inter Miami here. I think that they're a team that I think is gathering some momentum. They have some good players, Rodolfo Pizarro and Julian Carranza. So I'm going to say Inter Miami goes out there and defeats Orlando City tonight in the opener. And if I'm not mistaken, there's one more other game tonight. I thought there was. So let's see. I swear there was a 10:30 game tonight in the MLS tournament. No, it's just the Orlando Miami on ESPN tonight, so that's my bad. So I'm going to go with Miami tonight against Orlando. Now I'm going to preview and predict the golf tournament for the weekend. It is the very fun Workday Charity Open. There's some guys in this tournament that were not in last week's tournament, like Brooks Koepka, and there are some guys like Bryson DeChambeau who are not in the Workday Charity Open. My pick for the Workday Charity Open will be Ricky Fowler. He's 25-1. I think that he's somebody that's garnering momentum after a couple good weeks in the Rocket Mortgage Classic and the Travelers Championship. So give me Ricky Fowler, 25-1 to win the Workday Charity Open. I think Brooks Koepka is somebody that also has a shot. If I'm not mistaken, I think Rory McIlroy's playing as well. Shane Lowry, I think, has a shot. Gary Woodland is another guy to keep an eye on. Alexander Schauffele, Bubba Watson. Bubba Watson, by the way, playing really well. Mackenzie Hughes, I think, could be a dark horse. So, yeah, a lot of big names in this tournament. There's some celebrities in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I forget if it's this tournament or one coming up. Oh, no, it is this one. The Tahoe Celebrity Golf Tournament. So it's a celebrity golf tournament, not necessarily the Workday Charity Open. So it's two different golf tournaments going on. So now I have that figured out. So yeah, Ricky Fowler, 25-1 to win the Workday Charity Open. Now I'm going to do my 2012 MLB redraft. This was an interesting redraft. There's a lot of guys in this draft that had peaked already in their careers and aren't really the same. There's some other guys that are just peaking right now. Some guys that have had some injury problems. So without further ado, here we go. Astros number 1, Carlos Correa. No do-over here as the Astros get their franchise shortstop in Carlos Correa. It's interesting with Carlos Correa. He's somebody that is perceived to be one of the best players in baseball. He's not even the best player on his own team. I think you can make a case that he's like the 3rd or 4th best position player on the Astros. Maybe even 5th if Yordan Alvarez makes another jump. But Carlos Correa, really, 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 really good player. He's had some injury problems, so that's probably what set him back a little bit as well. But he's certainly an all-star player, and the Astros don't have any regrets taking him with the first pick in the 2012 draft. The Minnesota Twins at number 2 go with Corey Seager. Yes, Corey Seager. He did not have a good year last year, mainly because he was coming off of Tommy John surgery. I think that he's certainly a candidate to have a big bounce-back year with both Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger in that lineup. And I think that Seager's somebody very poised for a bounce-back year. And before his Tommy John, he was an MVP caliber player, all-star player. He was obviously the Rookie of the Year. So Corey Seager on the Twins would have been interesting, to say the least. The Mariners at number 3 go with Jose Berrios. Yes, that's an interesting pick. The Mariners go with the pitcher in Berrios, and it could have been him and Felix Hernandez in the same rotation there for a while before King Felix entered his post-prime, and he would have been their ace today for sure. And instead, the Mariners went with Mike Zunino, and by the way, the Twins went with Byron Buxton. The Orioles at number 4 go with Marcus Stroman. So the Orioles go with the surefire pitcher who has pitched like an ace at points of his career. At best, he's probably a number 2 starter. So the Orioles go with the pitcher there, and instead they go with another pitcher, Kevin Gausman. The Royals at number 5 go with Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo, good power hitter, doesn't hit for much average. Obviously tested positive for COVID, so he's out of the Rangers camp. But he's a really good player, all-star player, MVP caliber bat from a power standpoint. And him on KC would have been interesting. I don't know if he would have been on that championship team, but he'd certainly be their best offensive player right now. Instead, the Royals went with Kyle Zimmer. The Chicago Cubs at number 6 go with Lucas Giolito, so they take a possible future ace here in Giolito. He finally had a breakthrough year last year at the White Sox after many people, including myself, wrote him off as a big league player. Would he be their ace right now is the question. I would say probably yes. It'd be him, John Lester, Yu Darvish, Kyle Hendricks in that rotation, which is pretty good if you ask me. And instead, the Cubs went with Albert Elmore. And by the way, Giolito drafted by the Nationals, which we'll get to. And he was traded in a ridiculous trade that sent him and some other prospects to the White Sox for an overrated player in Adam Eaton. The Padres at number 7 go with Matt Olson. Matt Olson, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the league. He's somebody that hits for power, plays good defense at first base, and is a big part of the Athletics' plans going forward. Maybe if they had Matt Olson, they don't sign Eric Hosmer to that big contract. Instead, the Padres go with Max Fried. Not a bad pick. Pirates at number 8 go with Max Muncy, another talented young first baseman. But the dilemma is here that this was pre-Josh Bell. So maybe if they have him, they don't draft Josh Bell. Or maybe they do draft Josh Bell and they trade either Muncy or Josh Bell to address their pitching. But Max Muncy is a really good player. He plays more than just first base. And he would have been a nice piece for the Pirates to build around with Josh Bell. And instead they go with Mark Appel, who did not sign that year. The Marlins at number 9 go with Josh Hader. So the Marlins go with the hard-throwing relief pitcher with Hader. He was actually drafted by the Orioles and then traded to the Astros in a lopsided trade that sent, if I'm not mistaken, I'm blanking on that pitcher's name. He was a mediocre pitcher from the Astros, the starter. What's his name? Oh, Bud Norris. Yeah, I was thinking it was like a mediocre type of starting pitcher. So he goes to Houston in the Bud Norris trade, and then Houston mistakenly throws him in the Carlos Gomez and Mike Fiers trade, and that's how Milwaukee got their closer. And Miami, to be fair, probably would have traded Josh Hader, and probably would have been a mistake. Or even if they had him, they maybe would have gotten a lot back for him. And instead, the Marlins went with Andrew Heaney. Not a bad pick, in theory. The Rockies at number 10 go with Mitch Haniger. Remember him? All-star outfielder for the Mariners? Yeah. This guy really was a franchise-caliber player when he was healthy. The Brewers drafted him, and then they traded him to the Diamondbacks. I forget what trade it was, and then he goes to the Mariners in the Tajon Walker trade. So a couple teams, the Brewers and the Diamondbacks, make a mistake by trading away Mitch Haniger. And when he's healthy, all-star caliber player, but if anything, the Mariners are probably going to trade him away because Jerry Dipoto would trade his children. And instead, the Rockies go with David Dahl, which wasn't a bad pick. The Athletics at number 10 go with Stephen Piscotty. This is irony because Stephen Piscotty is a member of the Oakland Athletics right now, obviously drafted by the Cardinals. Came up, showed a lot of promise. And then the Athletics trade for him after the Cardinals requested the trade. He requested the trade from the Cardinals because of his mother being sick, and unfortunately his mother had passed away. But Piscotty's a really good player and should be with the Athletics for a while. And instead, Oakland goes with Addison Russell. Not a bad pick. Number 12, the Mets, Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton falls from 2 to 12. You're asking me why the hell did Byron Buxton fall from 2 to 12? That's because Byron Buxton really hasn't put it all together. He is yet to make an all-star team in the major leagues. And he's overhyped every single year. People could think he's Mike Trout, and he's not. I think he's one of the more overrated players and prospects we've had in baseball over the last decade, if you ask me. And that's not to say that he's a bad baseball player. He's a good baseball player, but has not lived up to the hype. And he'd certainly be the Mets starting center fielder right now. And instead, the Mets go with Gavin Cecchini. The White Sox at 13 go with Michael Wacha. This would have been a good pick for them. Michael Wacha obviously helped the Cardinals go to the World Series in 2013 and then was really good in 2014. And then he fell off a cliff because of injury issues and just was never the same. But he was a great pitcher when he first came up, and I loved him. And I thought he was going to be a Cy Young caliber pitcher, but injuries have obviously prevented that. And now he's with the Mets, and maybe he can resurrect himself there. And him on the White Sox would have been interesting. He probably would have been traded from the White Sox because they really haven't been a contender until potentially this year. And the White Sox instead go with Courtney Hawkins. The Reds at 14 go with Alex Wood. That's ironic because Alex Wood was literally just on the Reds. If I'm not mistaken, he may be still on the Reds. But Alex Wood, solid pitcher, pitching a lot of big games. But yeah, he's back on the Dodgers. He went back there, I guess, as a free agent. But he was on the Reds last year because the Reds traded him in that big trade with Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp for Homer Bailey, Jeter Downs, and Josiah Gray. But now he's back on the Dodgers. He should be in their rotation, maybe replacing David Price. But Alex Wood, a lot of big games. He's somebody that has had some up and downs, but his ups are pretty good. And would have been a good middle of the rotation guy for the Reds. And he got called up early too in his career, and they still had Johnny Cueto at the time that he was called up, so it could have been him and Johnny Cueto in that same rotation. And instead the Reds go with Nick Treviso. The Indians at 15 go with Ross Stripling. Ross Stripling is a really good long man pitcher. He could start, he could relieve. He's more of a utility pitcher. So he fit really well at the Indians right now, and he's been very valuable to the Dodgers over the last couple of years. And instead the Indians went with Tyler Naquin, which wasn't a horrible pick. The Nationals at 16 go with Max Fried, so Max Fried falls from 7 to 16. Max Fried is somebody that's shown flashes, has been pitching in big games for the Braves over the last 2 years, and he certainly would have been a good pitcher on the Nationals as well. And instead, the Nats go with Lucas Giolito, who we talked about earlier. And by the way, Fried is someone that was drafted by the Padres and it was sent to the Braves in the Justin Upton trade. The 17th pick went to the Blue Jays, and here I have them taking Edwin Diaz. So the closer goes 17. He had a bad year last year at the Mets. There was no other way to put around it. And if he wasn't bad, the Mets probably would have won the National League East, or at least been a wild card. So Edwin Diaz was a really good closer with the Mariners, and then he goes to the Mets in that trade with Robinson Cano, and that was a lopsided trade for the Mariners because they ended up with Jared Kelenic. But yeah, a really good pitcher, Edwin Diaz, and he would have been a good closer for the Blue Jays, granted in the AL East. And instead, the Blue Jays went with DJ Davis. The Dodgers at 18 go with Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb's a really good player. He's just somebody that's been hurt with injuries. He's been an all-star once in his career with the Diamondbacks. And he's a good power hitter, and it's just unfortunate he's been hurt so much recently. And maybe if they have him, they don't have Justin Turner. So that's like a random little what if. And instead they went with Corey Seager, and we know they'd rather have Corey Seager. The Cardinals at 19 go with Christian Walker. So Christian Walker, someone that had a breakout year at the Diamondbacks last year at first base. He's somebody that is in his peak right now. At least the Blue Jays. The Diamondbacks found somebody to replace Paul Goldschmidt. And it's ironic because the Cardinals are the team that traded for Paul Goldschmidt. So here I have them going with Christian Walker in the redraft. So maybe if Christian Walker develops with them, they don't trade for Paul Goldschmidt. And instead they go with Michael Wacha, who we talked about earlier. The Giants at 20 go with Lance McCullers Jr. Lance McCullers Jr. probably goes higher than this had he not recently had Tommy John surgery. McCullers, I think, is somebody that is very talented. He's like Ross Stripling in the fact that he can start or come out of the bullpen. He's better off as a starter. He's somebody that is a middle of the rotation guy when healthy, but I'm concerned with him because of how long he could take to become the guy he was. They obviously lost Garrett Cole, the Astros, so Lance McCullers Jr. is under a lot of pressure this year, or at least next year, to at least become the guy he was before the Tommy John that was striking out the Yankees in the 2017 ALCS Game 7 that prevailed them to the World Series. And then McCullers on the Giants would have been interesting as a number 3 guy behind Madison Bumgarner and Johnny Cueto over the last couple of years. And instead they go with Chris Stratton. Not a bad pick. The Braves at 21 go with David Dahl. So David Dahl falls from 10 to 21. David Dahl is somebody that's been injury prone the last couple of years. Probably goes higher to this if not for the injuries and being a Coors product. Let's be honest about that. But David Dahl's a good player, good power hitter, but I'm concerned that he's just a Coors product and isn't really all that good outside of Coors Field. He probably would have been a 4th outfielder on Atlanta. And instead, Atlanta goes with Lucas Sims. 22, the Blue Jays go with Addison Russell. So the Blue Jays have 2 picks in this first round. So they get Addison Russell. Addison Russell's now in the KBO, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody that had some good years with the Cubs and then had legal issues and really didn't live up to the hype. He was lauded when the Cubs got him in that trade a couple years ago. So Addison Russell's a little bit of a what if more than a sure thing. But yeah, him on the Blue Jays would have been interesting. Maybe he does pan out to the player he was lauded to be, and maybe they trade Bo Bichette for pitching or something. Maybe they trade Addison Russell. Who knows? Instead, the Blue Jays go with Marcus Stroman, who we talked about earlier. The Cardinals had 2 picks in this draft, first round, because of the Albert Pujols free agency. With the 23rd pick, they go with Mike Zunino. Mike Zunino, good power hitting catcher. Didn't really live up to the hype when he came up, but he was thought out to be all-star caliber, but he's not an all-star. He's just a solid starting catcher that provides power, kind of like Matt Wieters, maybe a little worse than Matt Wieters from a batting average standpoint. But the Cardinals maybe pick Zunino and then trade him like they did with Carson Kelly. And instead, the Cardinals go with James Ramsey. The Red Sox at 24 go with Carson Kelly. Here they would draft their catcher of the future after having a mixed bag of journeymen behind the plate after Jared Saltalamacchia departed the team. Although they've had some catchers that had some moments and some career years. But Carson Kelly would have been their backstop of the future. And he's someone that showed flashes with the Diamondbacks last year. And the Diamondbacks came out very well in that trade, by the way, because they got Kelly and they got Luke Weaver as well, who is going to be in their rotation this year. So yeah, Carson Kelly, Red Sox would have been interesting. And instead the Red Sox went with Devin Marrero. The Rays at 25 go with Andrew Tolles. Andrew Tolles, interesting player, hit for average with the Dodgers and helped them go to the NLCS in 2016. He's just had some injury problems and some legal issues as well. So he's more of a what if too, but he certainly would have been a great contributor if he was on the Tampa Bay Rays. And the Rays are a team that notoriously doesn't have great bats. And he certainly would have been a nice get for them. And instead they go with Richie Schaefer. The Diamondbacks at 26 go with Keone Kela, so they go with the closer at Kela. Kela is somebody that has bounced around a little bit. Got traded a few times. I don't remember if he was an all-star. No. Not an all-star. He went from the Rangers to the Pirates in 2018. And the Rangers didn't get much back in the deadline deal 2 years ago. Taylor Hearn and Sherton Apostle. So yeah, Kela is obviously the Pirates closer right now, and I won't be shocked if he's traded at the trade deadline this year. And him on the Diamondbacks would have been interesting. Maybe the Diamondbacks would have traded him at the deadline last year. So, you never know. But he certainly would have been a good fit for that team. And instead, the Diamondbacks go with striker Trahan. 27, the Milwaukee Brewers, Scott Oberg. So Scott Oberg goes here. Good reliever. Somebody that can do an inning out of the bullpen without giving up hits and runs. Innings eater. Veteran. Been in big games with the Rockies when the Rockies were in the playoffs a few years ago. And instead, the Brewers go with Clint Coulter. The Brewers also picked the 28th. They go with Malik Smith. Malik Smith is somebody that has been traded a lot of times throughout his career. He was with the Rays, he was with the Braves, he was with the Mariners. So he's bounced around quite a bit. Good leadoff hitter. He's had some good years in the big leagues. And probably would have been a fourth outfielder on the Brewers, considering that they have Christian Yelich and Ryan Braun and Lorenzo Cain on their roster right now. Maybe he is traded from the Brewers. And instead, the Brewers with this pick go with Victor Roach. The Texas Rangers at 29 go with Albert Almora. So Albert Almora falls from 6 to 29. Almora really hasn't panned out to what the Cubs thought he was going to be. Solid player, though. Good defensive player. Can hit for power at occasion. Probably would be the starting center fielder on the Texas Rangers right now. Instead, they go with Lewis Brinson, who has been traded a couple times from the Rangers to the Brewers and the Brewers to the Marlins, but really hasn't panned out. Number 30, the New York Yankees, Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker's interesting. Highly touted prospect with the Reds. Solid outfielder. Somebody that had some moments in the big leagues. Sometimes the Reds would use him as a fourth outfielder. Sometimes he would start. Yankees probably would have used him as a trade bait prospect. And instead, the Yankees go with Ty Hensley, who did not pan out. And last but not least, the Boston Red Sox at 31 go with Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney drops from 9 to 31. Heaney is somebody that's had injury issues. Probably should have gone higher than this in the redraft. But has shown flashes of potential. Was traded a couple times. Now he's on the Angels. Probably their number 3 starter, but on a good team, he's probably the number 5. Unless if he lived up to the expectations he was given when he was drafted. And probably right now would be the number 2 or 3 starter on the Red Sox because they really don't have anybody right now. Chris Sale out for the year, Tommy John. And then David Price got traded. And then Edward Rodriguez has COVID. But Rodriguez is asymptomatic, apparently, so he should be fine. But yeah, Andrew Heaney would have been their number 2 or number 3 starter, so that's really sad. And instead, the Red Sox go with Brian Johnson, who was seen in the big leagues as a starter and a reliever. And that's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow with the latest and updates of players opting out in the sports. We'll go over MLS, Premier League, and La Liga games and look ahead to tomorrow's game. Same with KBO. I'll give you a golf update, and I'll preview tomorrow night's episode of Celebrity Watch Party after a 1-week holiday hiatus, and I'll do my 2012 NBA redraft as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.